Good afternoon. My name is David Smith. I am the Chief Communications Officer for the Shawnee Mission School District, and I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Shawnee Mission Live, where we're going to be discussing the bond referendum, which will be on the ballot in January of 2021. I'd like to begin by introducing the folks who are with me in the panel. To my right is Amber Pagan. She's a pre-K teacher at Neiman Elementary School, and she's also a parent. Next to her is Dr. Brittany Gonser. She is the principal at Ryan Benninghoven Elementary School. Next to Dr. Gonser is Dr. Mike Fulton. He is the district superintendent. Next to Dr. Fulton is Diane Weeks-Radke. She's a parent at Deemer Elementary, and she's also their PTA representative. And last but not least is Anthony Springfield. He is an attorney at Polsinelli, and he is also the past president of the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation. Welcome to all of you. Glad to have you here. Before we begin, I just want to give you a little bit of context for the district. People always wonder, how big is the district, the size, how many schools? So we have approximately between 26 and 27,000 students. We have 34 elementary schools, 5 middle schools, 6 high schools, 4 district centers, 5 athletic facilities, and approximately 5,400,000 square feet of interior space. So that's a lot. You can see we have a lot of space to take care of. To begin, I'm going to turn to you, Dr. Fulton, and the first basic question is, why are we doing a bond referendum?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, Shawnee Mission, because of its age, has a number of buildings that are 50 years old or older. And so with that, we always have a lot of routine maintenance and repair that has to go on with our buildings. The district currently has around $750 million of identified needs with its buildings. Now, we can't get to all of those in one bond issue. And so this bond issue really focuses in on meeting about $263 million worth of those needs, including rebuilding some elementary schools and making sure that we're getting important compliance issues like American Disabilities Act, ADA accessibility in place in all of our buildings. So that gives you kind of a big picture understanding of why this bond issue is so important.
That's excellent. And why don't we go ahead and take a look. We've got a video that will give you a brief overview of the bond. Let's go ahead and play that.
In January, you'll be asked to vote on a bond proposal. Our goal is to keep the Shawnee Mission School District one of the best in the nation by employing awesome educators who work in amazing facilities where students can do their best. This is how the bond will help to support student learning. 5 elementary schools will be rebuilt and be brand new. There are John Deemer, Pawnee, Rushton, Tomahawk, and Westwood View. Playgrounds will be updated so all kids can use them. Did you know we have 25 acres of playgrounds? Our middle and high schools will have some classrooms, locker rooms, restrooms, and even some cafeterias and courtyards remodeled. Did you know we have more than 860 acres of grounds to maintain, and our custodians process 14,000 work orders a year? So work on parking lots, roofs, and HVAC will help keep our schools safe and healthy places to learn. Another way to support student learning is by hiring more teachers. Here's how the bond can help. If we fund facilities with the bond and move custodial salaries to our capital fund, then we can afford to hire more teachers from our operating budget. That helps our learning. An approved bond package would be about an $8 increase for the owner of a $100,000 home. And did you know Shawnee Mission has the lowest mill levy of all school districts in Johnson County? All of this will make learning in Shawnee Mission better for all students, now and far into the future. Want to know more? Visit us at smsd.org. Please remember to send in your mail-in ballot by January 26, 2021.
I love that video, and that young lady is going to be a star one day. I have some questions that I'm going to ask the panelists, but we also want to make sure that we hear from you because we know you have questions. There are a couple of ways you can ask us questions. You can send an email to askthedistrict@smsd.org. You can also send a text to area code 785-428-0477. Again, a text would go to 785-428-0477. We certainly want to hear the questions that you have. Dr. Fulton, I'm going to turn back to you, and you talked about what the referendum was. Why are we doing it now?
Well, why now is a very fair question given that we're in a pandemic. And so one of the reasons that we're doing it now is because this bond issue has been in the works for a number of years. In fact, work on the bond issue started around 5 years ago as we began to identify future needs for our facilities. One of the things that we did in our strategic plan is we identified specifically what those facility needs would be to make sure that SMSD stayed strong for its future. But we also, as part of our strategic plan, began to look at our staffing needs long term. And as was described wonderfully well by one of our students in that video, having this bond issue pass allows us to do all of our new construction for facilities out of our bond issue. In the past, we've had to use our capital funds for that. Now we'll just use bond issue funds. By doing that, it allows us to move some of our custodial maintenance salaries into our capital fund so that we're no longer using the capital fund for new facilities. And that in turn frees up money in our operating funds so we can add teachers at the secondary level to help with not only teacher workload, but importantly, help better meet the needs of all of our learners.
Excellent.
So it's an exciting time and opportunity to meet the needs of our facilities and ongoing maintenance, get new construction done, while also having a long-term strategy to fund reducing secondary workload so that teachers have more time to work with students to help them put together their personalized learning plans that prepare them to be college and career ready,
Right.
and help them have the interpersonal skills that they need for life success. That's what's core to our strategic plan. So it's a very exciting time for us.
Excellent. So you mentioned over $700 million in facilities needs. How did we come to that number? And then how do we decide what would be addressed through this bond referendum?
Yeah, in any school district, you're going to have ongoing facility needs related to routine maintenance. There are things like HVAC systems, asphalt, roofs, windows. All of those things are part of maintaining any physical environment. Schools have to do that, businesses have to do that. So this allows us to replace aging systems, making sure that we're keeping the facilities that we do have, keep them in really good shape. And as we took a look at those needs and we looked out 20 years, we were able to identify around, well over $700 million worth of need.
Right.
And so what this bond issue does is it takes that over $700 million worth of needs and breaks it down into a manageable chunk over the next 5 years.
Excellent.
To where we can have over $260 million of those needs met, including reconstructing or rebuilding 5
Sure.
of our elementary schools.
And so how do we, people think, okay, you chose this building and not that building. How do we come to the decisions about which things we would do and wouldn't and priorities? How did that come about?
Yeah, so when it comes to buildings, we really look at the age of the building and its functionality. At any given time in our list of buildings, we may have 5 to 10 buildings that really stand out
Sure.
as potentially having need. We'll take those with the greatest need
Right.
and we'll address those first.
Okay.
Now, those other buildings aren't going to go away. Those are buildings we can address in future bond issues.
Sure.
But you can only do so much of this in one time.
Right.
We do the same thing with HVAC systems. For example, you want to make sure that you have good heating and cooling in all of your buildings. Some of these HVAC systems were put in years ago. They're at the end of their life, and they need to be replaced.
Sure.
Other HVAC systems were replaced maybe 5 years ago, and they're in really good shape.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about those. You just have to keep doing ongoing routine maintenance. So that's how we make a decision about what goes on the list for this bond issue and what doesn't.
Okay.
And that's a process that we do on an ongoing basis. And by staying on top of that list and continuing to have bond issues now and in the future, we can make sure that our facilities stay in really good shape and we don't get ourselves into a crisis.
And so in this bond issue, we're going to have 5 elementary rebuilds. And can you remind the audience of what those are? I know it's Deemer.
Yeah, so we have Deemer,
Right.
which is in the south area, Pawnee, which is in the west area,
Right.
Tomahawk and Westwood View, which are in the east area,
Right.
and Rushton, which is in the north area.
Right.
Now that leaves Northwest with no new rebuilds, but we've already done some new construction, some rebuilds in the Northwest area, and a number of the buildings in the Northwest area are newer buildings.
Sure.
So that's the reason why you have those 5 schools where they are.
And speaking of in the north area, well, actually, no, we'll get to north in a second. I'm going to actually turn to Diana Weeks-Radke. And you've been involved in the visioning process at Deemer. And it's a process in which you as a school community begin to think about and envision what a new building will look like that will work for the Deemer community. Can you talk about that and maybe tell us a little bit about how that's been working in your school community?
Sure. We've had 3 meetings with the architects. The group that's working on it right now was brought together by the principal, and it included representatives from the school parents as well as our PTA representatives. And then they also reached out to the community. We have a couple of HOAs. Our neighborhood's 50 years old, and they were able to get a couple of people who came in who've already had kids go through Deemer. And we all had a meeting and we talked about what we wanted to see for our neighborhood. Because our school is sort of back in the neighborhoods, it's not on a busy street, It is very much a neighborhood anchor. And it's a place where kids play a lot as a de facto park. Kids walk to it. It has a lot of heavy foot and bike traffic.
Sure.
And so we talked a lot about the needs for traffic control and safety. And then we talked a lot about the needs for the school to grow. Because our neighborhood, I guess, is re-greening. And we're getting a lot of new young families moving in. And our school just continues to grow, which is fantastic. But it, needs to adapt to that growth.
Absolutely. And Diana, you are not just a parent, you're also a leader in the school community and with the PTA. Can you talk about it from that role, and as somebody who lives in the neighborhood, how does a new rebuilt elementary school impact your neighborhood and school community?
So I think it helps show investment in older neighborhoods and older communities. Our community is 50 years old. We're really close to Indian Woods Middle School. I think we have a really diverse housing stock.
Right.
And I think SMSD investing in us is actually going to help invest in our community as a whole and all the businesses around us. It's showing appreciation and maintenance and value in older neighborhoods.
Excellent.
And I think that's a great way to maintain vitality.
Sure.
And I think I think new families who might be moving, who might want to look at us, would say, "Oh, I could move here or here. Oh, but look, this place has a new, sparkling school."
Yeah.
And it might matter to some people, maybe not to others, but I think it's a benefit for all of us.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. Now I'm going to actually turn to the Northwest area and to you, Dr. Gonser. You're a principal at one of our newer elementary schools, which is in the Northwest area, Rhine-Benninghoven. Talk about how your building contributes to student learning.
Absolutely. Our new and updated facilities really benefit our student learners in a variety of ways, and some of those ways really is just the approaches to learning and teaching that we're able to take in our building. We know it's really important for the members of our community that our kids, when they leave high school and they graduate from our Shawnee Mission schools, that they're prepared for whatever they want to do next in their life. So we're able to incorporate a lot of those skills that our community has told us are the most important things to them. So things like being able to collaborate and work with other people. So not just our facilities, but also the furniture and the layout and the structures of our classrooms really is conducive for that and helping them promote that collaboration. Also, the problem solving capabilities that come along with our facilities as well. So we have spaces like a dedicated maker space where we can engage in STEM activities and a lot of hands-on learning experiences. Same things with our updated library media spaces. They provide a lot of those opportunities as well. And then also those presentation skills and the speaking and listening skills. We have dedicated spaces that are set up for students to use technology and present and share their own ideas. And it really builds those skills from a very young age, and our updated facilities allow us to do that.
So it sounds, as I listen to you, it sounds like our strategic plan has very clear goals for a personalized learning plan that will prepare students for college and career with the skills they need to be successful in life. Talk about how the building contributes to that. It sounds like it's going to really make a difference.
Exactly, those skills to be successful not only in school but in life that are key to this as well. You know, our school really simulates a space outside of the school walls. Maybe it looks very much like a professional office space or something that you might see in a post-secondary learning environment where it's not, you know, the individual learner on their own, but it's working with other people and in spaces that are conducive to that collaboration. So really, you know, we talk about preparing kids for the real world, but really we're making our schools look more like the real world.
Wow, that's exciting. Thank you. Amber, I'm going to turn to you now. You're a teacher in one of our early learning environments. Talk about how you feel the learning environment in your class impacts the work that you do.
I would say that I'm currently at Neiman Elementary, which is also one of the newer schools, and the space there is just amazing. You can tell that this building and that space was built for younger learners. My class is a nice big classroom. We have a water fountain in there, so that we also have our own bathroom. So that kind of cuts down on interrupted instruction time, because a kid can just ask to go to the bathroom, they just go. We don't have to take set bathroom breaks. So I love that that bathroom's there. Same thing with the water fountain. It also helps with supervision, because I can just watch them. They're getting the water, they're getting that oxygen to their brain, the water to their brain. Also, because I have that bigger classroom space, in pre-K we're really big about having the play aspect. So I have all my centers in there, all spread out across the room. I have plenty of storage, which helps me to store the materials I need to switch out the units in the centers, every single unit. So the kids are getting lots of time to work in different spaces. That is being changed out. They're able to use we have like a maker space area. We have a sensory bin, things like that. So the kids are getting to explore areas that they'd want to explore and make those choices. So I think it also builds into getting to make that decision making, having space to collaborate, because we have our whole group time, we have a library, kids are getting to make those choices for their own learning during their play. So
part of it sounds like I hear you saying that it's not enough for early childhood to just take a regular sized classroom and bring in smaller desks and chairs,
That's
right?
exactly right.
There sounds like there's a lot more to it than that.
Yes, it is, exactly.
That's excellent. Thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much,
you.
Amber. Anthony, I want to turn to you now. And also, you did an interview earlier, which we really appreciated, for the foundation and the foundation breakfast. And as always, you do an amazing job. So thank you for that. You know, we've had a chance to hear from a parent, from a superintendent, principal, a teacher. You're someone who represents the business community. Talk about, from a perspective as someone who represents that community, talk about the importance of rebuilding elementary schools and our schools to this community.
That's an important issue. What we do know is that we have a proud and long history of excellence in the Shawnee Mission School District. And what I appreciate about the district and what the superintendent has done is that we are looking towards the future. And as a member of the business community and a member of the community, I think it's so important to remember that history and how we can not only just focus. That's what I appreciate about the bond. It doesn't only focus on the nuts and bolts, the maintenance. It focuses on how are we going to best educate our children in the long-term future.
Excellent.
And I think that's very important.
And just as a reminder to the public, since we're not able to do an in-person town hall experience, we're doing this live. We want to hear your questions. Information is on the screen, so feel free to text us with your questions. Excuse me. So we're reaching out to community members, some of whom I've heard estimates that only 25% of us in the community actually have kids in the school. So there are a lot of folks who live here who don't have kids in school. Why is this important for them?
It's important not only from the standpoint of, developing the talent and investing in our kids, that's also helping the community.
Sure.
It's helping, our businesses. It's helping bringing in talent, attracting talent to our district, attracting people that want to live in the district, attracting new businesses to the district, and just overall, just the investment in your home and the place that you live. And I think if you do that, you have to invest in your schools because that is so important. That's where it begins. If you're bringing a new business or you're moving to Kansas City, deciding a place to live, and you have a family, you want an excellent school for your children. And like I said, and like Dr. Fulton has said before, that excellence that we've had, that history we have in Shawnee Mission School District, we need to maintain that, and I think this plan really puts us on the right track.
Excellent. Thank you. Dr. Fulton, this came in as a question. People are wondering, we have a good history in this district of sustainability. We do really well with recycling. With the new rebuilds, can you talk about what we're doing to make those environmentally responsible buildings? I know some people talk about LEED certification. Can you talk about what we're doing in Shawnee Mission?
Yeah, so when we go through our facility design, we work with the architects, the engineers. We definitely keep an eye to sustainability. We want them to be energy efficient. We want them to have all those qualities that we desire in making sure that we have a facility that's going to be environmentally responsible.
Right.
Whether or not we get LEED certification will be driven a little bit by the cost considerations in doing that, but the spirit of getting to a sustainable school resides in the process. And so those are the sorts of things that we'll be looking at as we do our facility design, and we also look at the budget and what we can afford to do with our facilities.
Absolutely. There is a question about the order of the rebuilds, and one of the things, we say, so we're going to have money to do 5 rebuilds. Why don't we just do 5 rebuilds? Why don't we just rebuild them? Can you talk a little bit about that?
In the process of evaluating how many schools we can rebuild at any one time, it really comes back to cost considerations. I mean, $260 plus million is a lot of money. But when you look at the number of facilities we have, it goes pretty quickly.
Right.
And so with each new rebuild at anywhere between $21 to $23 million each, that accumulates pretty fast.
Sure.
So what we have to do is we have to really evaluate which rebuilds can we do and when, and we develop a sequence for those.
Can you talk a little bit about that sequence?
Sure.
and why that sequence is important?
Sure. So in the sequence that we're looking at for these 5 schools, we have to think about where students will go to school as their school is being rebuilt.
Right.
And so there are a limited number of options. If we can rebuild on the site, like we can with Pawnee, for example, that helps.
Right.
But many of our sites involve smaller acreage, which means we're going to have to take the students off-site, have a place for them to learn, tear down that building, rebuild it before we bring them back in. We have a school that we currently use when we're doing rebuilds, Indian Creek, that, for example, students from Deemer and Tomahawk will go to as their schools are being rebuilt. Deemer's going first, Tomahawk will go second.
Right. And because they have to go to the same place, they can't happen at the same time.
Can't happen at the same time.
Right.
In the case of Westwood View in Rushton, it's kind of unique. We do have the ability with Westwood View to build that new school on a site a little near the current site, but different.
Right.
So we will build on that new site, have the Westwood View students occupy that site. The Rushton students can then come over to the old Westwood View building. We'll tear down their building, we'll rebuild Rushton, And then when we're done with the old Westwood View, then we'll make whatever steps we'll take to decide what to do with that property.
Sure. Okay, so then the order then, you have John Deemer and Westwood View being built in 2021, or beginning in 2021, Pawnee beginning in 2022, and then Rushton and Tomahawk beginning in 2023.
That's right, and particularly with Westwood View and Rushton, what's nice is we would have had to have the students at Rushton go all the way down to the south part of the district.
Right.
That's over about an 18-month period or more period of time.
Sure.
That's a long distance of travel.
Yes, it is.
And so it's nice that we're going to be able to rebuild Rushton on site, do it in the right way,
Right.
but also have those students not have to travel very far.
And as we talk about rebuilds, are we simply looking at the age and condition of buildings, or are we also looking at enrollment patterns and whether there'll be more students, and taking that into account as we think about the size of the building and other considerations?
Prior to making any decision about rebuilds, we did an enrollment projection study where you look out 4 or 5 or more years to determine what your facility needs are going to be. We also know that when you do rebuild elementary schools, you tend to get a regreening effect. Now that can vary depending on the elementary school attendance area.
Right.
But you have to consider that as you do these rebuilds as well. So we looked at enrollment projections, asked, is this a facility that needs to be rebuilt? And if the answer is yes, then we'll design it according to what we see in our enrollment projections, knowing that it's likely to have that regreening
Sure,
effect. It will give you more
absolutely.
students coming in.
So we're talking about elementary schools. We've got 5 of them. What about high schools? Why aren't we rebuilding any of our high schools?
Yeah, great question. Our middle schools and high schools have a lot of square footage to them. They also sit on defined footprints.
Right.
There's an incredible expense in rebuilding a high school or a middle school.
Sure.
And you also have the problem of having enough land to actually do the rebuild on.
Right.
So typically with high schools and middle schools, the approach will be to continue to update the existing building. Sometimes you add on to them if you need additional space, but our focus really is on keeping those buildings as fresh, as new as possible.
Sure. Excellent. Now, I've been asking a lot of questions. I wonder if any of you as panelists have questions either for Dr. Fulton or perhaps for each other. Anything any of you are wondering as we think about this?
Well, I know before this started, one of the things we spoke about was the impact that the new school had on the learning environment and the new opportunities that it provided. And I know that at Deemer, we're really looking forward to see what new opportunities present themselves to our students. And so is there any one thing that you think, is an overall?
The flexibility that we have with our spaces is incredible. It's wonderful. It provides so many opportunities for our students and for our teachers to be able to use those spaces in ways that they just wouldn't be able to if we didn't strategically build them into our buildings. So some examples of that are being able to design learning structures where students are working in small groups and have their own individualized spaces for those groups, and not only have the space, but within that space have those presentation capabilities that I mentioned, where students can use their individual devices and share content and explore and learn as well. So I think the flexibility and the opportunities, and really it gives our teachers so much room to create and design instruction that can be so much more innovative because they have these tools at their disposal so easily. So I think that's really exciting. Also, it's been great for our community to have this space where people can come and gather. Obviously not this year, that looks a little bit different, but it's just a great communal gathering space because we have these kind of wide open spaces that again are flexible. In our building in particular, we have walls that move and furniture that's designed to be used in a variety of different ways. So it gives us these great gathering spaces, and they're also very inclusive gathering spaces too. So our playgrounds are inclusive. They're inviting for members of our community to come and use. Just like you said, it's not just for school. I mean, we live, work, play, learn there. So it just really is, it makes our school the heart of our community, and we're so glad that we can support our community in that way.
That sounds exciting. I gotta say, we could use some more space. We have a big event called Goodies with Grandparents, and it's where the kids invite a grandparent or an elder adult. And one year we had 350 people, and we could barely get them in, and we were worried that the fire department might, but it worked out. We were very cozy pre-COVID, and so we would like more flexibility to do events like that.
So Diana, you mentioned COVID, and I'm going to ask a couple more questions, and then we're going to review the ballot timeline. But the question came in specifically about COVID. Dr. Fulton, this may be one for you. What are we learning from our experience with COVID-19, and will there be any changes to our plans for the bond that take into account what we're learning from that experience?
Well, a couple of things is you could never have enough space, right? We had huge classrooms and we could get everybody in more comfortably. But so space does matter. But the other thing that we're paying attention to are things like our HVAC systems.
Sure.
The better the filtration, the healthier the air is. And that's true whether you're in a pandemic or not. I mean, that will help during flu season, for example. So we're taking those lessons learned from the COVID experience, those being two, and really thinking about how that applies in a post-COVID world.
Right. Excellent. Appreciate that. Diana, someone wrote in specifically for you. So you have a fan out there.
Probably my husband.
Well, so he said, how will you engage with parents and PTA members to help them to know about the bond and the things that it's going to provide?
So we've decided to, we actually don't have a PTA meeting typically scheduled in December. It's our month off.
Sure.
But we've decided to do, we're going to send home flyers with families. We're going to post on all of our social media that we can. We're also going to reach out to our HOAs in our neighborhood because it impacts everyone who lives there. The people who have already had kids go through and the people who are moving in who have toddlers, just so that they know what is coming and what could potentially be a really large benefit, not just to the kids who attend, but to everybody in the neighborhood.
Sure. I think that's one of the things about public education that sometimes we can forget is that the public schools aren't simply for the children who attend, but that is how we as a community give knowledge and prepare the next generation to take their place in the community. So it really does benefit all of us. We did get a question from a viewer that I can use as a segue because they asked about when the last day to register to vote is. So I want to talk a little bit about the mail-in ballot and some of the important dates that we're going to need to pay attention to for that. So the first date to know is December 28th, 2020. And that's the last date where citizens can register to vote and automatically receive a mail-in ballot. Those who register from the 29th of December through January 5th of 2021 have to complete a special application to receive a ballot by mail. So if they do it before the 28th, it comes automatically. If they do it between the 29th and the 5th, they have to get a special application to receive it by mail. If you want to know more about the registration process, you can visit the Johnson County Election Office website, and you can see the information on your screen with the Johnson County address. Or you can call 913-782-3441. The website address is jocoelection.org. So another question we're getting is around whether the ballot will be mailed. And a ballot will be mailed to all registered voters in the Shawnee Mission School District, and that will happen sometime around the 6th of January. All you have to do is to simply mark your ballot, sign it, and send it back in the postage paid envelope, which will accompany the ballot. Also, mark on your calendar January 26th, because the ballots all have to be received at the Johnson County Election Office by noon on January 26, 2021. So please mark that, and it's one of those things, don't let it lay around, just get it done. Do your voting, take care of it, send it in, and then you don't have to worry about it. Again, the Johnson County Election Office website is www.jocoelection.org, and you can call them at 913-782-3411. If you do decide you're going to bring it in, their address is 2101 East Kansas City Road in Olathe. There's a question about the percentage that has to pass in order to pass it, and it is 50% plus 1. So we need to get over the 50% margin in order to pass the bond. Before we close, Dr. Fulton, I want to sort of give it back to you and see if you have any closing remarks, things that you want to say.
Well, you know, Shawnee Mission community is absolutely fantastic. We have a history of supporting our schools. We have great teachers and wonderful parents. I think the fact that we are doing a bond during the pandemic really reflects the fact that we have done our due diligence in careful planning. You know, the community put this plan together, and we're now at a point where we have an opportunity to make some decisions about what we want our future to look like for all of our children, both now and in the years to come. And so with that, I'm just grateful that we have an opportunity to have this discussion today, and I encourage the residents of Shawnee Mission to become really well informed about this bond issue, ask questions, have those questions answered, and vote.
Excellent, excellent. I want to thank our panelists, Anthony Springfield, Diana Weeks-Radke, Superintendent Dr. Mike Fulton, Principal Ryan Benninghoven, Brittany Gonser, and Amber Pagan, teacher at Neiman. Thank all of you for your participation. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch. Please vote. Looking forward to that. Meanwhile, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay SMSD strong. Thank you all so very much.